Call the EMA committee meeting to order. We have a set of minutes in front of us.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carries. At this time, we'll open it up for the public comment. Anybody got any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close that. Director's report, Mr. Newberry.
There's three items there, and I'm gonna go in reverse order if that's okay. The grant, that's Homeland Security grant. And with approval of that, and Lauren chime in here, they wanna move that to where it'll be in the next year's fiscal year, so you don't end up putting it this year and then turn right around and have to move it again.
Okay.
But that's all 100%.
We ain't got time to spend it this year.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why for that.
Yeah,
So, and the grant contract is in there, and if anybody needs a copy or wants a copy of the actual.
What do you buy each year?
You know, Jerry, I can't answer that one, cause I don't know if that is one that already has the assets tied to it, but Marty would have that list if it
You
is.
go back to tell Martin that we didn't pass it because
He didn't have a list.
you didn't know what it was. Move to approve.
yeah. Well, hold on. Can I amend your motion? We need to approve and accept it to apply to the FY 26 budget that starts in July 1.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have to be really specific about that because what happens, because this comes in June every year, if we approve it now, it's gonna apply to this fiscal year. And then we've got to turn around and do this all over again in July to move it to the next fiscal year. So if we do it this way, specifically
So
to
you good
apply
with
to.
that?
Sir?
You good with that?
Yeah, that's what they done. That's what he just explained.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Get a question.
Yes, sir.
How many federal grants in different departments do we get?
It's not that many, honestly. Homeland
Do they
Security is
work
the
on the-
biggest one that we get on a regular basis. I don't know of anything other than, there's some ARP money. The TDAC grant that we've got for the water departments, that's kind of a federal flow through. So,
Litter grant.
the litter grant, yes. Yeah, but that's state though.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah,
All the
Yeah, but
federal
from a
money is
federal-
October to September.
yeah, but federal, there really is not a whole lot, so, yeah. So anyway, so we just need to be real specific
I'm
with our,
sorry, guys.
yeah. You're fine.
Will the resolution go in this month or you wanna hold it to July?
I think it's gonna go in this month is the idea. So we're gonna try to work it through this committee, through budget on Thursday, and then we'll go ahead and pass it at commission, and then it'll be available July 1, but we just need to be real specific when we approve it, that we say that it applies to the FY 26 budget year.
I got it.
So,
So we got a motion and a second by Mr. Hall. Any other discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Any nays? Motion carried.
Second item is, line item transfer, just moving from communications over to utilities, just to cover bills, to keep the lights on, the water flowing through this budget year.
Motion.
Second.
Motion second. Any other, or any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
A lot of paperwork I'm gonna send around, if you'll go that way with it.
Oh,
Just one apiece, and then
One piece.
sorry, that's for the disseminated, but I wasn't sure exactly how many was gonna be here. I think we got enough.
I think that's it. Let's see what they got. That's all.
That's a separate
You
one.
Oh, separate one,
Okay.
okay.
You know, sure I had to get the paperwork.
Gotcha, okay.
Need to send it your way first.
Oh,
Yeah, I need one.
There you go. Did you get one of these?
I got one of those. We got a, maybe.
Okay,
So that one's 2025 data, and then this, I'm sorry, 24, and this next one coming around is 2025 data, and that'll make sense in just a minute.
okay.
So 24 data you just got, this is 25 data coming around. It should be January, February, and March of 2024 and 2025.
Okay.
Gotcha, okay. I've got a January to February, so March, nothing.
I got
Okay,
one.
hold on, I've got a
It says
January 25.
February 24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one's
There's a January 20,
Oh,
there's a
okay.
January 25.
Should have January, February, March of each of those 2 years.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you can
Right, what about
year
It's
to year.
January 25.
January,
Yeah,
I don't know,
there's
that was,
56
Oh,
of them.
yeah.
that was an oddball page.
It's February 25.
Hopefully, that printer was doing some
March
crazy stuff, so hopefully it came out right.
25.
So
Now, let's just make sure we got March 24, March 25, February
March 25,
January 25.
This is March.
January 24th.
I don't have a March 24.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't have a March 24.
I don't have a March 24 either.
Unless it's attached to February.
There's one right here, but I think.
If he do this, he do it by himself.
He handed that. Oh, that's what's on the back, look.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I don't know why I only printed that one page though. Yeah. I'll bring it up on here.
Okay.
That for some reason it only printed one page of that. Sorry about that.
We'll give that to Mike, because he,
Sorry, I know that's a whole lot, but I'm gonna show it up here and you can digest that later. Just kind of show you how this works. So what I'm gonna do is kind of give you guys an analogy of where that third ambulance in Lebanon has really helped us and the community. And we've all benefited from that. So across the top is the station, 1 through 12. 12, we didn't have any, this is January 24, so that's the third ambulance, so that's why there's no data in that number 12 slot. And on the left-hand side, so our medic units are based off of station. Medic 1 is Station 1. Medic 11 is Station 11, etc. So the green is their primary zone, okay? So, and the red is the next highest out of zone. So for example, Station 1, Medic 1 ambulance over there made 220 calls that month in their zone, designated zone, okay? So they went to Station 5 in Gladeville 3 times, Station 6 in Lagardo 4 times, and Station 9 56 times. So what we were doing, and still do to some extent, 1 and 9, Station 9, 1 and 9 here in Lebanon, they're just doing this all day long. You know, one's out, they go to their zone, they're out, they go to their zone, and vice versa. So, drop down to Station 2 is Watertown. So 34 of their calls was in the Watertown zone. 9 of those, they came all the way back to Lebanon, Station 1 zone, which is Maddox Simpson. Okay, so obviously it butts up against that. They went all the way over in Station 8 zone 2 times, which is Carthage Highway, which you go in the back way is not really that far sometimes, depending on where that call was. But they came into Station 9 zone, the north side of Lebanon, 9 times. So
All
now,
the way to Lagarde.
yes, sir. No, to the north side of Station 9 on Hunter's Knoll.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
it is.
And that's
Now,
from Watertown.
Well, here's the thing. It could be that they were in town and they were leaving off of another call and they were the closest unit. So there is some disparity in that to some extent, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
Station 4 in your zone
Right.
could have come up here for mechanical issues. They're on the way back and they run up on a wreck at the bypass or something.
Yeah.
Well, that data's going in, looks like, well, they did run a call outside of their zone, but they happened to be there.
it made sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So some of that, just keep that in mind, but, you know, for the overall, you know, they went to Station 11, Noring, 3 times, which again is, I mean, it could be not that far depending, but then it could be depending on where it's at. So hopefully that makes some sense. So if you go down here to,
When you say Medic 1, Bryce, excuse me to interrupt you.
no, you're fine.
Medic 1 up there, from station, is that all the ambulances combined there, or is that just?
No,
one-
that's just that one
One
ambulance.
ambulance?
Yes, sir.
Or what else you
Yes,
got there in the way of ambulance?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So in 2024 in January, we only had Station 1 and Station 9 in Lebanon. In October, I think it was, we went online with the third ambulance. Then that helped this area. And I'll show you where that helped, but it still has a huge workload over here still. So, but like Station 6, Chad, in your zone, so they ran 67 of the calls in their zone. But if you look, they came back into the North Zone 231 25 times. They even went down to Station 10, which is south of Providence area. They went to Gladeville twice, Station 4 twice. But again, they could have been coming back or some odd anomaly like that sometimes. Mount Juliet 3 times, and they came back into Lebanon Station 1 zone on Maddox Simpson 7 times. So they're out of your zone
Right.
running these calls in that time frame. But what hurts us there a lot of times is, well, we have a lot of wrecks, obviously, as you all know, on 109, and the engine may go, we don't have 4 people there, so an ambulance has got to come from somewhere else. The reason we send an engine first, it has medical capabilities, rescue, and fire. We just send an ambulance, You just have EMS capabilities.
Right.
Now, they're cross-trained, so they could potentially do some extrication, but they don't have the tools to do that, if that makes sense. So that's why a lot of the zones out of Station 6's zone is pretty high because, again, if it's a wreck, it's automatically an ambulance coming out of another zone, just because we only have 2 people down there. And you'll notice here on, like Station 8, Carthage Highway, 40 in their zone, but then 34 come back to the north side of Lebanon, and 30 of those went to the south side of Lebanon. Okay? Does that make sense, hopefully? So this graph will kind of help articulate that a little bit. So if you look over here, that gives you your percentages out of zone. If you're a numbers person, you got to see numbers. Again, 12 was not in service at this time. So if you're a graphical person, mark that down a little bit. Can you, whoop, is that too small? Or
You're good.
try, see if we can do this and get it off there. All right. So again, you put it on the graph, and your blue is they're in their zone. The red is they're going somewhere else out of their zone. So that's the number of calls. And you look at 7, like, wow, that's only 4 calls, but that's a geographical thing. If you have to get to Statesville from anywhere,
You can't
it's
do
not quick. So
Those four calls, we're very glad to have that.
that you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And you know, worst case scenario, and hey, we've done it recently.
Yeah.
That ambulance is in Station 6's zone or 5 zone because we're running out of ambulances. So we gotta pull them in to where the call volume is, obviously. So now let's look at percentages. Again, the same color scheme. Let me drop that just a tad. Same color scheme, and what we really like to see is about 25% or less out of their zone. But if you look at Station 8 right there, and this will pretty well average all year long, between 55 and 65% of the time, they're running calls back in another station, or another zone. And where you can look at that to see where that is, if you go back up there at the top, remember I showed you where it was in the red or it's out of their zone, you can see, oh, if you look back at that real quick, so if you look at 8 again, remember what I said, 30 of theirs was in Station 1, 34 was in Station 9, that's where they're running those calls. So that way you can go back and see where these reds, you know, Station 7, again, there was 2 and 2, but 2 of them was in their zone and 2 of them was out of their zone. So again, we like to keep that 25% or less. Now you look at Station 4, goodness, they were only 4% of their calls out of zone. But here's the reason why. They don't have a zone around them on the Davidson County side. You see,
Right.
everybody else has a zone, well, if you get toward Watertown, of course, anywhere you got a county line. But there, it's very consolidated, if that makes sense. So we don't see a lot of out-of-zone calls. Most of theirs is going back to Mount Juliet to back them up, Station 3 in the county, or sometimes 10.
What about 3, the Mount Juliet North?
Yeah.
Running, well, 80%, 75% of the calls out of zone.
Well, and a lot of that is they're going back to Station 6, because to the point of that ambulance is.
Where is that?
Clemens Road, Station 3,
Okay,
Clemens Road.
okay,
Yeah, right off Golden Bear.
the new one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. So they'll get a lot of 6 and 5 zone is where they pick up a lot of theirs. Because again, the majority of that is within the city, but you have pockets all throughout the city is county property.
Yeah.
So that's why you see that. So again, if you look at, you know, Medic 1, they're running a lot, you know, a high percentage, 78% in their zone, but that 22%, again, go back and look at the numbers, guarantee it's in Medic 9 zone.
Brian, I have
So-
a question. How do you work it with Mount Juliet running ambulances also? Did you run in, back them up, they come out and back you up?
Yeah, they'll call and say, hey, we don't have a unit, or we need an additional unit, we'll send, you, depending on where it's at, Station 10.
Mutual aid,
Yeah,
provider,
correct,
well.
or 3, yeah, or depending on where.
How many ambulances they have?
3 full-time, I believe is
Okay.
correct, yeah.
How many calls are you still, or are we still covering?
I gotta get with Marty and see if there's a way to run that in the CAD, cause I can't run it in our patient care report program. So I gotta get with him and see if there's a way to pull that data. I was
I was
looking the other day. So if you look at the graph here, it kind of breaks it down and shares the workload. So again, you can see, and keep this in mind when I show you this on the 2025. So Medic 1 and 9, they're running pretty close to the same. And, you know, that obviously Lebanon is the busiest zone. So that's where that data shows, you know, the busiest stations. So that's why, you know, we were easier to put an additional unit at 9 because we had the bedding and the facilities to do that versus we'd had to pull a piece of equipment out of 1 to do that. So that's why we went there. And again, you can see the call volume very close anyway. And we're still trying to tweak those zones to kind of distribute that workload a little bit. Does that, any questions on that? I just wanted to.
You're in January 24,
Yep.
you'll move on to.
Yep, I'm gonna show you January 25 just to show you the difference here.
Are you justifying the third ambulance? Is that what we're doing here?
I'm wanting to prove to you that it was a great investment. Now, where did my? There it goes. Let's see, 25. All right, so if you look at 2025, let me get my 2024 just to have some numbers here. So if you look at that, the call volume is 1175, and 2024 it was 1135, so very similar. Obviously, the demographics where the calls are and that kind of stuff is fluctuating. We have no control over that. But if you look at your out of zone there for Medic 1, you know, they had 16 there where they had 56 the year before. So that obviously helped that out. And then I'm not going to go through all of them, but you've got the data here to look to see just kind of where that, but where you can really tell that is, again, if you're a numbers person, if you look to the bottom right, it's 86 and 14. So in zone, we want it to be higher. We want them to be in their zone running calls. Where it was 78% in 2024, it went up to 86%. So obviously and the zones went down overall from 22 to 14.
Right,
So,
is a separate zone from 1 and 9?
Yes, sir.
Okay, where's the dividing line?
Oh, I'm trying to think, Jerry. I think it goes down 231, maybe across Castle Heights, down West Main. But one of the things.
That's what you're counting these two. They both service Lebanon.
Correct.
But
What we did, we
okay.
call it Station 12, just from a data standpoint. We have to have a
Okay.
station, even though it's physically still Station 9.
Okay.
And then it's Medic 12 because it's Station 12, you know, virtual station, I guess you could call it. They have a 12 and a 9 on the floor, so here's
Okay.
Station 12, here's Station 9. But they have separate zones because the problem we would run into if we just said, okay, this is Station 9, y'all run the calls as you see fit, you know, back and forth, you would have no data to know
That's correct.
who's going where. So that's why we did them as separate station and zones, so we can track the
But
data.
control
so we
up
can
against the
show-
same building.
Yes, sir.
So each shift, you've got different people set up for 9 and 12?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yep, absolutely. So just to scroll down on that, so if you look at, you know, the data here, obviously you will see 12 in that because it is in there now compared to 2024, you didn't see that. So you can see overall the red and the blue accordingly there for those numbers. And then if you look at percentage wise, come on. Smaller. There we go. So if you look at Medic 8, for example, remember that was 62%, I think, the year before? It's 32 here. So Station 8 on Carthage Highway is coming in a whole lot less now than they were before because you got that third ambulance in Lebanon
Coming out of zone.
picking up those calls. Yeah, so you're keeping them in zone. Same way with, you know, Station 6, they only ran 14% of their calls out of their zone compared to
This pretty big difference.
compared to 36 the year before. So, again, I don't want to bore you with all the data. You've got it. I just wanted you to understand how to read it, and if hopefully it makes sense, just to validate the value that had.
Just the one ambulance.
Just one. Now we need another one, fourth one. I won't argue that point all day long. So if you look here, now you remember it was about 25% equally, now you're 20 and 18. So what we're trying to do, we're gonna rebuild that zone a little bit to include just another couple of streets over. So we hopefully or equalize that workload out a little bit more. The Medic One's zone is busy one, it's got a couple nursing homes and things like that. So we can't push it too far over into their zone because then, you know, it's gonna be longer for this ambulance here to get there from that ambulance, and that makes no sense just to justify numbers. So, but we are looking at something, if it don't increase the response time and we can go a street or two over, like going down to probably where the jail is and down west, or down the bypass versus where we cut across Castle Heights, that may make that 19 and a half or 20, you know what I'm saying, it may equalize that workload a little bit. But you can see overall, it helped both of those as well as other ones. But the other thing that, you know, I mean, you can still go back to the overall out of zone percentages. Now, 7 is I mean, you're probably not gonna change that a whole lot because they don't have much call volume and they're going into other zones because we need them somewhere else. I mean, that's probably not gonna change.
Which station?
Statesville.
Station.
Yeah. So, but you know, when you get into, and you can still see 9 and 11 or 12, station 12 there, Medic 12, still about 50-50 on theirs because they're coming back over here and picking up Medic 1's calls still. Because they own one ambulance over here, you know, 2 ambulances over here. So it's just a volume thing. Now 3, you're probably not gonna change that because again, the city's covering a lot of that. So we're going to station 6 or 5 or 10 or 4, you know, those stations covering that. So even though that looks really bad on 3, it's really not because of the geographical area that it's in and the city's covering the majority of it. So sometimes that looks really bad, and I mean, 79% looks really bad, but when you understand why that's that way, there's no, I mean, you're not gonna go put another ambulance, in my opinion, from a volume standpoint, you wouldn't go put another ambulance down there just because of it. Because if you put another ambulance down there, it can still be 79% or 60% because you're still gonna be going out of the city into the county.
May only be 2 blocks out of
Yeah,
it.
exactly, absolutely. So, but again, the biggest ones to look at is the 12, 9, and 1, that's your 3 Lebanon units. And it really helps Station 5 there, Medic 5, they're out of zone, they're not coming to Lebanon as much. Station 6 is not coming to Lebanon as much, and Station 8. So it helped keep those in their respective zones more in that. So again, the only thing to help that even more at some point is either another station in Lebanon to offset that volume we're still seeing out of zone trucks come in. You're never gonna get that to 0, obviously, because I mean, there's days we've had 6 calls in Lebanon, I mean, within 10 minutes. And I mean, we don't have that many here, and then they're already on calls too. So eventually, that's going to be need to look at that from. But wanted to show you what that benefit was. I mean, you could take that and put a 4th ambulance or another ambulance here somewhere in Lebanon, whether it's at a same station or ideally would be somewhere else inside the city, so you're spread out a little bit more, and not, you know, you're 2 stations, and you got a lot of calls here in the center. Well, would really be great to have one there because you have less response time and you spread the workload out. But just want to plant that seed for the future.
Right.
Again, show you what that is.
For central dispatch, does it work okay with the 2 ambulances station?
It does, but because we gave them the station and the unit numbers separately and made them their own zone,
Okay.
so they
Wherever that zone pops up on the map, that's where.
that's the truck
Dispatch
goes.
your primary.
Now, there may be,
secondary.
so some other things to keep in mind, it doesn't happen often, but let's just say somebody got sick on Medic 12 and they got a call in 12 zone. Well, if Medic 9 is at that state, they're gonna go make the call, obviously, because they're coming out of the same station. So again, little quirks like that you can't put that in the data, but you know, again, Station 4 driving by a call that's not in their zone, but they're closer, makes sense. Or things like that, somebody gets sick or they're running late or whatever, and another truck takes it. Those little anomalies will be in any data that you do, but that's kind of where that stands. So any questions?
What do you think if we added a crew, so 2 people to Station 6, what would that do to help?
Oh, it would help tremendously
That's-
because if you look at the data here, so, let's see, Station 6, so it did help out quite a bit with Medic 12, because you can see there at, 5, went back into Lebanon, and then the 2 to Station 4, and then 5 to 5, and 1 back to 9. So it would it's definitely helped that already just by, because that truck is closer to Lagardo, going out Coles Ferry, et cetera. So
What if-
that's helping them out already.
What I'm thinking is, because you've already got the equipment there at 6, so you don't have the, you have the capital costs, you would just have the additional operational costs.
The only downside of that is the
No
So
room.
that's why I was
There's no
asking.
room.
Well, I know there's no space.
Now,
I'm just talking about,
If
and
that money comes, the
Right. I know there's,
state money there for a new station,
right,
absolutely,
That's in the,
absolutely.
that's
Is-
kind of
is
in the
there-
works on
is
the
there-
horizon.
Yeah,
yeah.
Enough property to
Yeah.
put your station in the same location?
no, it's not there.
Where you gonna have
You may know, I don't know.
I think they're looking,
Yeah. I don't know,
well, I think the mayor
and Joey both
Joey.
looked at them. Yeah, I don't know if they come down to the location, but, it wouldn't be where it's at, no, there wouldn't be enough room to put it where it's at all. Because ultimately, with that, if you man that with a 4-man station, you have a wreck on 109, I mean, other than I need
Right.
another ambulance or it's a significant wreck, but let's just say an average run-of-the-mill wreck,
Yeah,
it's handled right there. Nobody else has to come
One
out.
thing about it,
Right,
just like
yeah.
everywhere, it's like Spence Creek's got what,
Mhm.
900 rooftops.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the city goes over there all the time,
Mhm.
yeah,
as
No.
far as the fire.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was just thinking from an economic standpoint, I mean, that would be the cheapest way to do it, because you've already got your equipment.
Right, yeah, anywhere, yeah.
Yeah.
Kinda like
Have to
with
pay
Medic
that.
12, we were housed that we didn't have to buy we didn't have to buy another station or internet and phone, none of that stuff, so absolutely.
Right,
That's the less costly way to go, because you don't have any of those capital expenditures, absolutely.
Good information.
So,
yeah,
but again, you've got that data, I mean, I've got more, I just kinda wanted to compare a couple months from year to year to see the benefit it wasn't like we were making stuff up, not that you thought that, but we just wanted to be able to prove that, hey, that was,
Good way-
that was good for the people of the county.
Where-
absolutely.
Question for you, Brian.
Yes.
If at some point in the future we did this again, and you had a 4th ambulance in the middle of the county, where would you?
The best place, because you got to look at, we could heat map it and kind of see. But if you look at that, 1 and 9 that is obviously the best call point. Somewhere in the city, because we've kind of looked at it, West Main, Carver Lane, somewhere in that general area, because you could get down 70 toward Lagardo and 109 quickly, back into town, up toward the pier, or branch off kind of anywhere from there, hit Coles Ferry, et cetera, pretty quick. So, yeah, just somewhere kind of in the city, because we even, we've looked at a couple of potentials, but obviously, having a location. I mean, we can say we'd like to have it in the middle, but where's a big enough place to put it in the middle? I don't know. We haven't kind of got to that point, but at some point, just from a volume standpoint and to Haskell's point, I mean, everything's still growing, so the call volume's not going down anytime, never. So,
Right.
any other questions on any of that? If you have any questions on it later on,
Like on a ambulance, I know, we try to buy new and
Mhm.
we might, I guess you put some that's higher mileage,
Mhm.
closer zones, areas. Do y'all work it that way?
So basically, every truck, they have an assigned truck, if you will, but we try to every week, and depends on what's going on, we don't, sometimes we don't get it done. But right now, we have 4 reserves, because we're down 1 from a wreck, which we got 3 new ones, hopefully going next week to look at, to pick up. So we rotate those out. So that way, your newer trucks don't just accumulate mileage while your older trucks are just sitting here. So we try to bring 2 to 3 of those in a week, to put them in a reserve truck, let them run that for 4 or 5 days, maybe 7. Sometimes we'll run them a week. We try to do it Monday to Monday. Don't always work out, but that lets them, again, give that truck a rest. If it needs maintenance or whatever the case is, it can go in and get that done and just let it sit and let the other truck that's been sitting go out and run a call. We even do that at Station 7. We'll pull that truck up here cause you see the call volume. So we'll pull that truck up here, put it at a busy station, like station 6, 1, or 9, let that one run for a week or so, and then send it back down there. So it's not just sitting there.
I guess what I was thinking, like if you found an ambulance that had a little bit of miles, not a lot of miles, instead of buying a brand new one, maybe bring it in, help.
Unfortunately, the market, there's not a lot on the market, and the other part of that too, every one of our trucks for the since 2012, when we started buying new trucks or new ambulances, they all have the same configuration, same layout. You go from, with a very few exceptions, over time, things are gonna change, obviously. But like one cabinet has changed, I think, Robbie, something like 1 or maybe 2 cabinets. So, I mean, it's not
It skipped off a
much.
little bit when we had to widen the CPRC. There
Yeah,
was a cabinet
because of
under
some
that.
federal
Other
regulations.
than that,
But they're basically the same configuration,
Mhm.
which makes it nice, cause if I've got a cardiac arrest or a trauma patient, I know I go to cabinet 4 and I can get this.
Right to your stuff.
If I get it done, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm in this truck, where is that at, you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
muscle memory.
Muscle memory.
Yeah, exactly. But again, and the problem we run into with that too, the bigger trucks that we run, you don't see a lot of used ones in that respect.
Right.
Demos and stuff, because a vendor's not gonna go with a higher end amp, they're gonna build for demo purposes. They're typically gonna build a lower end or a medium end truck, and it's just a basic cookie cutter truck with minimal storage. So that, and the other part of that too is, like with ours, we get 5-year bumper coverage warranty on it.
Right.
So it don't matter what goes from a chassis standpoint, you know, motor goes out or, you know, transmission or whatever, it's covered for, you can't get that on most of your Fords and Chevrolets and things of that nature.
Right.
Yes, sir.
You still use internationals.
Yes, sir.
They doing good.
Yeah, we haven't had hardly any major issues. The only thing that we've done is we swapped a motor out on one, but fortunately we bought the one back that we wrecked. So our shop was able to take that motor and put it in that one. So it cost us $11,500 to buy that one back, but a new motor is $30,000. Plus, we have taken several parts off of that wreck truck that we would have had to go purchase anyway, mirrors and forks and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's scrap sitting behind the training center, but there's still valuable equipment on that made sense to pull that engine and put it over there. And because, I mean, we did, labor-wise, I mean, we're already paying them to do that, so.
Box damage too.
Very minimal, very minimal. So, so we can, again, we've taken parts off of that and stuff, so it worked out, you know, as best it could in an unfortunate situation. Any other questions? That's all I have, unless anybody else has any questions or, you know, if you want those, I can send those to you electronically, but that way you can digest them and kind of see, again, just wanted to show the benefit of, what y'all was able to give us, and we definitely appreciate it, and it's helped our response to the citizens of the county and the visitors.
If you got another truck in the future, you put it here in Lebanon.
Yes, sir.
Bill, anybody got any other questions for Chief Newberry? If we'll get a motion to approve this report.
Don't move.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we got any old or new business?
I would just like to say thank you to WEMA because they've been running heavy out my direction. Yesterday in particular, there was a house fire on Franklin Road and then, a tractor caught fire over on Shannon Road. And the same field the same guy's tractor burned up in last year.
Oh, goodness.
I was like, I wouldn't cut that field in.
I was gonna say, I quit. That one anyway, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all do a good job. Y'all run yourself to death.
We have a lot of great folks out there working every day, so we appreciate the equipment that, you're able to give us and let them do their job safely and effectively.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well, need one more motion.
Adjourn.
To adjourn.
We're adjourned.